Amazon is launching their new LLM.
JP Morgan is particularly in their asset manager area saying that they want to use AI.
Google delayed in launching Gemini.
Why are we shooting these videos at 7 a.m.? That's why we always look very
Very sleepy.
Yeah, my hair's always a bit messy, but so.
I wake up super early, take a shower, and have a coffee so I can be coherent.
Excellent. Well, here's to that. So this week in AI, Joel, why don't you start this week? I know you're always got some interesting things to talk about.
We got two news from the giants. So apparently Google delayed in launching Gemini, and the rumors is that they have hallucinations that they are a little bit embarrassed by. That's the rumor. As if you remember the first few months of OpenAI launching, everyone and their sister tried to see if they can get it to say, naughty things. Naughty, racist, sassy, And yeah, the answer is yes, you can. You are able to get it to say like you would any other, person actually. But Google can't handle it. I think that's the news item, because they're so big and corporate. You remember how they used to be permanent beta company? They launched Gmail in 2004 and was beta for like 3, 4, 5 years or something. Experiment fast, move fast. The ethos of Silicon Valley for many years has been move fast and break things. I think we see that they're not there anymore. They're much more around, let's worry about the press release. Let's worry about what they say in the news media. And that's kind of what Microsoft used to be criticized, right? But Microsoft went and launched went with Bing and with OpenAI. So it's an interesting role reversal we've got here between who's the incumbent and who's the challenger. And in parallel to that, in the same week, we also hear that Amazon is launching their new LLM. They're going to call it Q. Last week we talked about how OpenAI have Q Plus coming, and apparently Q is the next. I don't know why Q. Is it because of James Bond or something? Or quality? What is that about?
No, there's a way of training that I can't remember the exact name, but it's got Q in it.
Oh, it's the algorithm. I need to Google.
No, I did a bit of a look at that as well. But I think it's a way they approach it with training LLMs there.
I was about to say I need to Google it, but maybe I need to ChatGPT it. So Amazon are coming up with their own new LLM, and the rumor is that it's enterprise ready and it's enterprise oriented. I remember when Apple came up with iPads, and the whole world went crazy with tablets and thought it was tablets. Everything's going to be tablets, and literally every company announced a tablet. So we'll see if Amazon LLM is how it's going. We've got reason to believe it would be big because Amazon, but you also have reason to believe it won't. They are launching it to the enterprise, so it's supposed to be this tool that you can hook all your enterprise data to and ask it questions, which it feels like we've seen a lot of pictures of companies doing something similar to that, right? So it's another one of those startup big extinction moments for probably many startups, but we'll see where that happens. So that's the news on my side.
Yeah. Well, look, I think about that. There is this race. We're seeing that happening more and more. But I think, in this case, this affects a lot of their other products. So if it's not right in one area and they push it out, it'll, impact their whole, I guess, G Suite. To your point, I think there is now a bit of a slowdown in terms of there's a sort of a conflict here that they need to compete, but they need to push things out. I think this whole space is I'm getting overloaded. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like there's too many of these conversational AIs. It's embedded in everything. This will almost become the norm. I think the big question is, are you going to go and use one product over another if it's 20% better or 10% better or whatever that number is? I think the interesting thing is where is the opportunity then if this is going to be embedded in those products for the startups? And that's the underlying challenge for those early stage companies, is not to kind of develop something that's going to get overridden by the incumbents. But yeah, I feel it's getting very crowded, and to differentiate on that, I'm not sure, what happens here. But yeah, I think this fail fast has gone. In some ways, rightly so, because we do need to be careful on what is being produced out of this. You are seeing when we talk about hallucinations, obviously there's all the disclaimers, but people will use this information in the wrong way, and therefore they will lose their position in this case, where search is so strong, they lose that credibility. I think that's one of their key worries. Microsoft have come in and you do all these things. You still look at search. It still is, they are the clear winners. And I think that's reputation as well. And if they start to lose that could have a potentially impact there. But they also, I think that, whether search is the future is the big question as well. So another thing this week has been, there was an article in Bloomberg talking about JP Morgan saying that their AI technology is starting to generate revenue. And so they've backed hundreds of projects, and they're close to coming to fruition. And they're really looking at that as their competitive advantage to beat the market, is what they're saying. So, JP Morgan is particularly in their asset manager area saying that they want to use AI really to help them make better decisions and really, as we say, augment a lot of what they're doing. And so they see this as being a mega force trend. And they need to kind of build on this, and they view that there's that could be worth up to 2.6 billion in what they're doing. So I think this is going to be really interesting, and yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that draw as well.
It's hard to tell. They weren't really specific about it. It sounds like it's a bunch of internal projects and maybe some customer facing advising tools, stuff like that. But I think the story here is, major Wall Street player investing heavily in AI and feeling that hundreds of their projects are coming to fruition, and yet not firing everyone, right? So the biggest fear is always, oh, this new technology is gonna result in massive redundancies. You can never really tell what the future may hold, but so far in history, it didn't play exactly like that. The reason it doesn't play like that is interesting. It's the competitive dynamic of capitalist systems. So let's say you and I have competing businesses in software, all right, and AI comes along, and I go, oh wait, this using Copilot, my engineers can be 10 times more productive. I'm going to immediately use it, and my productivity is going to go up. So the layperson would think, oh, so you're probably going to fire 80% of your engineers because 2 engineers can do what 20 can do, right? No, what happened is that I'm getting my 20 engineers and I'm going to get them to be more productive than maybe 50 or 100 engineers. In the meanwhile, you see that, and you see that I'm moving faster, so you do the same. So now none of us can actually, fire everyone and just get it done with the 2 engineers we were dreaming about, our CFO were dreaming about, because of competitive pressure. So as a result, it just increases the productivity in the economy scale, as opposed to make everyone redundant.
Yeah.
And that also, anyone who's seen how unproductive actually software engineering is, they would say, yeah, okay, you can probably 10x the productivity there and still feel that you're not moving fast enough, right? It's not like a particularly, productive endeavor. Now, it's nice to see headlines that kind of reaffirm that. Whether or not this will persist is obviously an open question, because this type of new technology, like intelligent technology as opposed to mechanical technologies in the past, are hard to understand exactly the impact on knowledge workers and again, on people. And in parallel to that, ABC Australia came up with an article about how lots of people lost their jobs. Again, they're picking some sort of an example from a call center and customer support roles that may have become redundant because the companies deployed chatbots and things like that. And then yet in the same article, they also quote economists that says that, in fact, the labor market is super tight, and like there's actually the unemployment rate is almost too low. That's why they keep having to jack the rates up. So the macro picture, it's like any technology wave in the past. Some roles would be redundant. New roles are being created in the economy. These are not always, you don't take the people who lost their jobs to, horse carriage and make them car engine engineers. But overall in the economy, we have more employment.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, I think. Lucky last, you want to talk about the OS?
We've talked a lot, Draw, about how applications are going to be developed. And we've always talked about applications, but I think there's also a fundamental change that we could see in terms of operating systems. So, a lot of people on the PC side are using, Windows or iOS. I think there's a new way to work, and there was an interesting article by a guy called Cam Peterson talking about what would an LLM OS look like. I think this is going to be really interesting. We're going to get used to operating in a different way rather than going through menu structures. And I think we're going to have this futuristic way that we talk to our devices. We get back different, agents will go out and do things. I feel like this will be something. I'm not sure how that will look, but it had quite an interesting take on how you'll have multi-agents working for you instead of having these applications. You'll literally just converse like we're starting to do in terms of that conversational AI. But, taking a whole step further, that we won't have these, it'll be embedded in the operating system as part of the the baseline, and so you have a browser that the LLM interacts with. It just is really at the central part of everything. What do you think? And I know you've probably looked at this far deeper than I have.
I think it's complete bullshit.
What?
Well, okay, so let me let me unpack that. I mean, if you want to define an operating system a certain way and say, listen, here's a new way of an operating system. At the end of the day, used to mean the software that operates the hardware, and the hardware used to mean the actual logic boards, the screens, the hard drive. And over time, we added more and more. If you remember what an operating system back was 30, 40 years ago, it was like, you turn on the computer, you get a black box, you can type things. That was it. That was the operating system. Now you can work with it. I think what you're saying is interesting in that, will we or won't we work completely differently with the computer? And the answer is probably a bit of yes and no. So first of all, look at what you do when you actually work in a computer. See if you can verbalize that. It's very difficult actually to verbalize intent. Like, for example, do an exercise. Sit next to your wife, ask her to do things for you, but you're not allowed to touch. You just talk with the computer and see that it's completely impossible to correctly articulate in language fast enough your intent. It's a little bit like, what's easier, to tell someone how to cook versus to cook it, to do it yourself. There's a reason we have, 4 fingers, 2 hands, 2 eyes, and just 1 mouth, right? It's not so simple.
Later on today, I'm going to go and ask my wife. I'm going to go and ask my wife to cook for me and say, I'm going to blame you that you're the one that said this. And
see what happens.
I'm sure she'll be pretty happy about that. So I appreciate your...
Let me know how it went. Anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about it, and they used to be talking about how programming, you can talk to the computer instead of programming and typing. Really bad idea, because talking is slower and less intuitive than actually typing and writing. Second, now I do think that we will have quite a different interface. For example, if we always use the book a trip, right? If I want to book a trip somewhere, it takes half a day, it's very stressful. You have to compare, you have 20 different tabs open. So there's a high stress monetary transaction happening. If I can outsource that to an agent and say, hey, come up with a few ideas, sell it back to me and let me choose, and they do a good job in doing that, then that would be great. And we can get there. So that's an application level.
Don't you have the same problem there about intent? How do you know whether you want to just book a simple flight or you want to go and have something really custom, like you have certain requirements in that. So how do you sort of distinguish that?
Well, I think that the operating system will be able to, which is what OpenAI does already. It understands your intent and it can activate apps for you. If that's what they're talking about, then if that's the definition of an operating system, that's fine, which is already where we are, right? So you talk to an OpenAI system and it interprets and creates and translate that to API calls on your software. Again, if you broaden the definition of operating system, everything goes. If you use the same interpretation of what we're using these days, then I think LLMs and their big impact would still be in the operating system, in the application layer as opposed to the OS layer.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, though, we can do some of those things already as we stand today as well. So, look, maybe we're talking about interface. The interface will be different. I thought it was an interesting take on where we could get to. I don't know. I think I'm starting to work very differently. I don't know how you find it, but I'm interacting with different AI-based products in my daily life almost all the time, and they're either embedded within my browser or they're embedded. That's the most value for me, the context switching, going to another application. And that's why I say when it's native in an OS, it's just going to be there. It's not even a thing. It's just part of it. And I think that's to me is what I'm finding the most powerful. And I go, well, imagine if I didn't have to install all these things or download this app, or it was just some of those baseline, particularly around writing, particularly around summarizing, particularly around do this with this, those. But I think this is like what's exciting for me is being more productive. And I'm seeing that output in my own life. And, we're seeing a lot of corporates now starting to see that. Obviously, there's the time lag, but we're going to see, I think, particularly next year, some big upticks in this. And so we don't have a lot of time today, so I think let's wrap it up today on that. But let's do something different, Draw, next week. We're coming towards the end of the year. I think that'd be really great to see where we've started, where we're at, and maybe even make some predictions for where we see next year going. But I think that'd be great if we can do that. What do you reckon?
Let's do it. I love it.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's This Week in AI. I'll catch you next week, Draw.
See you later.